This is the third in the series of Journey Through the Chakras videos. And in this video, I'd like to talk about the Manipur Chakra, which is located at the lumbar, opposite the navel in the spinal area in the body. Energetically, this chakra represents fiery self-control. It is the center, the nerve center that directs energy towards the digestion of food. So it's digestion and assimilation, kind of the digestive fire is one way that this has been described in the Oriental tradition. And so it represents that fire element. But it has a number of subtler aspects that I thought to touch on today. The topic of the chakras is a vast, vast area, and I could give long classes on each separate chakra, but you can think of this as a kind of an introduction. The spiritual aspects of this are that we have to develop our own sense of will, our own sense of drive. And this chakra is crucial to that. And on a spiritual level, and I touched on this lightly, I think, in the first video, talking about the Muladhara chakra, the coccyx center at the base of the spine, that these represent parts of the Eightfold Path of Yoga of Patanjali. So, for example, that Muladhara, the first chakra, is representative of the ability to follow the rules, to stay within the rules, the lines, to not do the things that are wrong. The second chakra gives us the power to do the things that are correct, which is to say, follow the niyamas, follow the qualities like devotion and introspection and creating self-discipline and contentment and cleanliness. Those are powers that will serve us throughout life. And so the second chakra helping us to develop that aspect of ourselves. But the third chakra is very much oriented around the will. And it's interesting that in the martial arts tradition, there's a tremendous amount of focus on this center, on developing this center where the chi is located in the Oriental tradition. There's a life force aspect. You can think of it as kind of the center of our physical life force that flows through the digestion, that creates our physical identity or energy. And it's extremely important. And the aspect of Patanjali's Eightfold Path is asana, posture. And we have to develop that posture of life, which is upright. And that is a choice. It's not just a function of, obviously it's possible to have a deformed spine or have to have some spinal injury that will affect one's ability to stand upright. But for most people, it is a choice whether we exercise the will. And it's fascinating to think that 100 years ago and more, people made a big deal out of having good posture. Kids would walk around with books on the top of their head, and they'd have to keep those books balanced. I remember trying this as a kid. Go walking around the room with a book on top of your head. Can you keep it up there and have it not fall? You have to keep your chest upright and your neck straight and your chin parallel, and you can't be sort of wiggling your head around and kind of, loosey-goosey. It has to be real firm and yet flexible enough to work with the movement. And that's a really good way to look at life. If we are willing to be upright, which is to say to direct our energy upward, then good things happen. And if we think of this in terms of sort of the classic mythologies of the way we look at the world, you can see this in popular movies. So again, rewinding back to the first chakra, the Muladhara chakra, we have the coiled energy at the base of the spine, represented by what? A dragon. A dragon who is guarding treasure, the treasure of the infinite, piles of gold, mountains of gold and jewels and gems and all, cups and bowls and plates and, treasure chests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all very real because that all lives inside of us. And you don't mess with that stuff. You don't go and fight the dragon. You can awaken the dragon, but if you're going to encourage the dragon, you better have a place, you better know what to do with that energy. And the second chakra being you have to learn to work with the creative force in your life and channel it in positive, useful ways. For many people, that would be to have children. For other people, that would be an artistic aspect of life or just a creative way of approaching life. In the case of the third chakra, what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop our own sense of power and not so much personal. Yes, it has to express through us, so in that sense it's personal, but it's the sense of what will I do with my life force? How will I direct my energy? And in the mythological aspect, you could think of this as the villain who wants to take over the world, who wants to be king of the world, who wants to tell everybody what to do. And we can sometimes see this mirrored in the political world of our world, of our lives, wherever we look. We can easily find bad examples of it, but there are some good examples too. So think back in history to Gandhi, for example. Well, here we have someone who, he never carried a gun, he never carried a knife, he carried a pair of glasses and he carried a pen. And not even the pen necessarily, but I mean, he had like a pair of sandals, something to wear around his waist, maybe a shawl. I mean, those were his possessions, but his energy was upright. His energy was directed upward, and he tried to live in a dharmic way, which is to say a righteous way. He tried to lead people in a path of non-violence, and this, which is another of the yamas, to control that urge towards violence. But in his case, he was doing more than that. He was controlling the sense of what will I do with my life force? How will I guide it? How will I direct it? If I try to direct it to control other people, there's a limited amount. Yes, we can have some influence, and he had a tremendous influence, but he wasn't out to try to control people. He was there to try to inspire people, to uplift people. And so if we use the energy first on ourselves, so if we exercise the fiery self-control on ourselves, it's wonderfully well directed. And then we can use it to uplift other people as well. And this, astrologically, this chakra is guided by and ruled by Mars, the planet Mars. And astrologically, the two signs connected with it are Scorpio and Aries. And they represent sort of opposite sides of the way that energy can be directed. Aries being the more positive and outward one, Scorpio being the more negative, which is not to say bad, but it's the more inward one. And they both have tremendous power. Aries would be more the power to accomplish in the world, the power to initiate. Scorpio would be more the power to achieve within, the power to experience higher states of consciousness within. So they both have a deep meaning and significance. And in our lives, learning to direct our life force, one of the classic and amazing ways to do this is through the energization exercises, which we practice daily and which we encourage people to practice. I lead them in our morning sadhanas every Thursday morning. If you're interested in seeing those, you can look for the Thursday, they usually say long meditation, and starting at 5:45 in the morning. You can practice them with me. But they have this tremendous power to help us learn what is within us, what energies are moving, and how can I understand them? How can I learn to work with them in an uplifted and a willing way? And that's a really, really important thing to do. The second thought that I'll share, and I'll close with this, is let us learn posture. And I don't just mean stretching postures, those are valuable also. But in this case, I mean the posture of life, the posture with which we live, the posture with which we stand, with which we walk, with which we sit. If it's uplifted and energetic as opposed to sort of slouched and kind of defeated, then our energy will always find a way. Swamiji, I'll close with a little story. Swamiji, as a young boy, got into different scraps with other boys who almost inevitably seemed like they were bigger than he. Somehow they were sort of offended by his presence in their lives, and they felt the need to beat him up. And he said one of them in particular could have killed him, but he said, I wasn't afraid. And even though he couldn't defeat this boy physically, the fact that he never gave up, he never gave in, meant that this boy just, left him alone after that. It's like he just, he sort of got scared by that power. And it is a tremendous power to use. So let us learn to direct that, learn to experience and guide that energy in our lives. And not only will it bless us, but it will bless those around us and ultimately the world. Namaste.